So the Passport Bros got numerous videos because I think we talked about this on the Passport video where I was saying the distinction was they said they were looking for black women, and when they went to those countries, they were looking for the black women of those countries.
They,
If that's
but
from their mouth.
so what happens is a lot of people don't think that they're white people in Latin America. They think that they're just
Mm.
light skinned. Okay. And so they feel like, oh, I got the light skinned sister. And then you looking at it like, no, that bitch just, I'm sorry.
You tired.
I
You
ain't
let
even
that
going
slip.
back. People like, no, she white. I mean, I guess she got a little bit of complexion to her, but she's white. And so the darker women who look more like the Afro, look more African than they do, those women. I'm telling you, because I've seen these videos with these women who are actually being interviewed, and they are saying they are being overlooked.
So I was trying to find this term earlier, and there's a famous art piece. I want to say it's from Puerto Rico or Dominican Republic. When it's a picture of a black grandma, a black daughter, a white husband, and a baby that looked white. And the joke in the picture was the grandma was smirking and the husband was smirking because the baby didn't come out black. There's some like ideology that says like about purifying the race or something by getting closer to light skin. That's like a thing. I think there was even a government
Yeah,
program to try and institute that. Like this stuff deep. So when people be like racism and stuff don't exist, I'm like, bro,
it
you are existing in
does.
some type of bubble.
And it can be as simple as a woman who is of darker shade being knowing she's been treated a certain way, and she's like, I don't want my kid to have to go through that. Like I don't want I want my kid to have a privilege just like everybody else. So I'm gonna do this because I would never wish that on my child. So it's people who it is unfortunate, but these are real situations that are taking place every single day, and we cannot ignore them because to do so is just, I don't know.
But that so when I made the statement earlier about I go out my way to compliment them, this is what I'm talking about. Why I would do that. You know what I'm saying? If I know that that's what you up against, and that because that's just crazy. It's just crazy that we've come that it's come to this, right? I mean, it's getting better, but at its
And
worst,
for
it was
us, and it's
ridiculous.
coming from, and it's us who are doing it. It's you understand what I'm saying? For
Programming.
other people to do it, it's different. But for us to do it to ourselves, like we don't have a family member who is of darker shade. We don't have it. Like that's the crazy thing about it to me, because I've seen beautiful dark skinned women. I've seen, well, men, but I've seen beautiful dark skinned women, and it's just crazy that I've literally seen men who choose a woman just because she's light skinned and is this one is beautiful. And I'm like, they don't even look.
So, but I think like what you were saying earlier, the example of, a woman not wanting her child to go through that, that's how it starts. And if we're honest, most people don't know how to process feelings, so it turns into anger. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna have a tough time in this world, so I'm gonna be tough on you so you grow thick skin, right? But then that child doesn't know how to internalize, so then they hate themselves, and then it just replicates generation after generation. And who taught us that? It's, you know what I mean? Like it
Mm.
didn't come internally. It's something that was internalized, that was given to us. Because when you go back before contact, that it was quite the opposite. Where it was the more melanated women who were more desirable, it was the more melanated men that were more desirable, right? We were taught these things, and out of survival, we had to adopt them. And it just never went away because it got passed down from generation to generation, because you had parents who weren't able to communicate what they needed to properly because they were still in survival mode themselves.
I 100% agree. And to AP point earlier, I like to know how she came to the conclusion of that they were not dating her specifically because she dark skinned. Because maybe it's her attitude, right? Or maybe it's something else that's going on, right? It may. We all know that the dark skin thing exists, but I just was thinking about it. It might be something else with that particular person, and a lot of times people don't take self reflection.
I don't
But all
think
the
it's
stuff
a
we're
dark
talking about,
skin
real.
thing. I think it's a black thing. I don't think that black people are getting married.
And
Mhm.
I had thought about that too, but I'm only going based on
What she
what
said.
he said because we can
Yeah.
make a lot of assumptions. So
Yeah.
It ain't a dark skin
really
thing. It's a
basic
black thing.
what she said. But I have heard the same, like how Inaz was saying. I have heard the same thing. I don't think the whole colorism is a delusion. It isn't. It definitely isn't. Even for me, even though I guess on the winning side, so to speak, but even I experienced it growing up, and I was very insecure about my color growing up because I wasn't darker. And I used to try to sit in the sun so I can tan. Like, because of being like I'm the lightest one in my family. And so I felt like the outcast. Or then if you're around other girls who were darker skinned, sometimes you became the target of the the bad behavior of like, who did think she is, did light skin, stuff like that. So the colorism thing really, it truly exists. And I do know on the other side of the being attractive aspect of being, oh, look at that red bone, even when you're around other groups of women that are darker skinned, you know what I'm saying, that it makes you feel uncomfortable.
This is the thing right here. I think that black people have this obsession with other. For example, it's not just the skin too. Oh, your texture of hair. What are you mixed with? And you
Mhm.
say, you got to be mixed with something to be, like, what is your obsession with that? Like, oh, you got this. It's like almost to the point where it's like the first thing that comes out of people's mouths, and it's like, what? Because I guess black people don't have long hair. I don't know what the rationale behind that is. It's just like the hair, skin complexion. It's crazy.
So that's not something that's like exclusive to black people, right? It's across all communities of color. You see it with the Hispanics, you see it with the Asians, like you see it in all any community that has any amount of pigment, you see colorism exist. You see texture, like issues around texture exist. I It's not exclusive to us, I think, cuz we see it amongst ourselves so much, and then it's like it's publicized, right? We don't see too many people in other cultures have videos go viral over these types of comments, but it does exist in those communities.
I remember seeing a video. It was in about Mexico, and there's a whole group of, I guess, what they call like Mexican, like Afro Mexicans, and they like was doing like a documentary on
I saw
how they
that.
were being treated in Mexico because they look African. They look straight black, where they don't have the same access to housing. So they're all like condensed in this one area. They don't have the same access to healthcare. Basically, the same issues that black people face here in America. And I was like, oh wow, and again, the more lighter skinned Mexicans, the ones that looked mostly white, how they're typically represented in commercials and on the soap operas and things like that. So they were talking like, if you didn't know that they were in Mexico, you would think that they were here in the United States, having the same exact talking points that we have. So it definitely isn't just an American thing.
But I
So
will
like,
say, this will be real quick. I'll say that we're taught it. I was just sitting thinking when you were talking about soap operas and stuff. At that time, I was literally thinking, I was like, every time I see in movies a successful black woman, she's typically lighter skinned. Anytime I see the angry black woman, she's typically darker skinned.
And now they say it all the time.
And if she
One
is
of the
darker
ones.
skin and she still has European feet, you know what I'm saying? So there are dark skinned women who do well, but they still have like their bone structure may look a little bit more European than,